Hi everyone, I'm joined today by Rhonda Muller. How are you, Rhonda?
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Chrissy. Thank you for having me. Very exciting.
It's really exciting to chat with you because we met in person a few weeks ago and I've learned a little bit about your company called ASD Healthy Life and was really inspired by the work that you've been doing with both families and individuals. And I wanted to share your work and some insights with my community. So I'm grateful that you agreed to chat with me today.
Yeah, any time, anything to do with supporting and educating the community, I'm all for it.
Excellent, thank you. So I've told you a bit about my wellness school and my Unbreakable community, and there's a lot of depth to the work that you do. But today I thought we could touch on a few things regarding the importance of good nutrition to support good health, including mental health, physical health, and a bit about hormonal health. So I want to kind of just lead in with some questions, and we can chat about those from both your experience and my experience as we go, if that's okay.
Yeah, beautiful.
Good. So you came to your journey of nutritional therapy after a challenging time in your own life. Why is it, do you think, that when we're faced with challenges, many of us need to embark on our own journey of learning to find answers, for our health issues?
I think that's a really, really good question because it pretty much comes down to see a need, fill a need, really. So for those who don't know my story, you can jump onto my Facebook page and there's a little video sort of explaining who I am, what I do, and potentially what I'm about, how I can help people. But um, I guess I started down this realm because I used to be a small business coach. I used to help husband and wives get their businesses off the ground and stuff. But when the health and development of our youngest child started to have, major regression, he was reaching all of his milestones, and then things started to regress. And it's like you're constantly hitting your head up against a brick wall. You take one step forward, three steps back. And I was not in the health sector then. I was in marketing and accounting and all those types of things, and working from home, which gave me the flexibility and the time freedom to raise the four kids. And so, when he started to have some health complications, first thing you do is go to the doctor. Or, I was going to the gastroenterologist and the dermatologist and for all these health issues, and I wasn't getting answers. They kept pretty much saying to me, oh, he's got some behavioral issues, Rhonda, and this is like a little boy, he's 20 months of age, and he's got some behavioral issues. Perhaps I should do a parenting course, and here's some antidepressants because you need to calm down, Rhonda. And it was like, well, the red wine and chocolate was working. That was helping me to soothe. And my husband would come home and I'd hand over this gorgeous little boy that just was not coping, and inhale my family block of chocolate while I was, drinking my bucket of red wine and crying into my red wine. And yeah, I wasn't getting answers. So we start to do research, and nothing against the guys, but us girls, we do better research than the FBI. When we feel that there's something not quite right, we're a dog with a bone type of attitude, and we just don't give up until we can work out what's going on, but also what resonates with us, because it's definitely not a one size fits all.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because most people that I've met and come across, particularly in the last 12 months since I did my own healing journey, when I talk to them, their journey also came about through their own curiosity, their own dogged determination, their own quest to find answers for themselves. And then once you develop those tools and those skills, you then want to share them with others as broadly as possible. So I'm guessing that's where you've come to in your life as well.
Absolutely. So we were very fortunate that a lady put a flyer into my son's pigeonhole at a daycare centre. So we were in Townsville for many years. Our two youngest children were born in Townsville, and then we went to Sydney on a 2-year contract, and that's when the regression escalated even further. And trying to get the support, etc., that we needed for our son, trying to identify what was going on. I guess. Yeah, it's like that, that dogged determination. And a lady put a flyer into my son's pigeonhole, which opened up our world to nutrient therapy. And by that stage, my son, after 9 months of just going from one person to another, and finally walking into a childhood developmental assessment centre with my son, saying, I'm not leaving here until someone takes me seriously. There's something significantly going on here. My husband called it my Google diploma back then, where I was researching until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And no wonder we burn ourselves out, because we just feel like we're not getting that support or the guidance. Finally, just before his 3rd birthday, he was diagnosed severely autistic. And I'm very passionate about what you put out to the universe will come back tenfold. And that's exactly what happened. I was very open to what was out there, and very open to talking to other people and seeking out like-minded people, surrounding myself with people who had been there in that journey. And that flyer, like I said, opened up the whole avenue for me to start to study nutrient therapy, and I started to implement those strategies and etc. into my son's health and development, to the point where he was gaining such incredible improvements. So and that's why I started to study. We were in Sydney on a 2-year contract. We moved back to Townsville, and we entered our son into a centre called AEIOU, where there was full-time speech and occupational therapy, etc. And I really focused on the nutrient therapy. I was educating myself. I was, studying left, right, and centre. And so nutrient therapy, the way I explain it, I'm very much a visual person, but it's like two sides of the coin. Immediately people would think nutrient therapy is all about food, but it's a lot more than just food. It's obviously our lifestyle and things like that. But I've studied over 100 different dietary theories, and that's like putting all the pieces of the puzzle together in regards to food. Seemingly good food could be very problematic. So it's about removing what's harming and replenish for what's healing on a bio-individual basis. So like you and I, Chrissy, we could be identical twins, but in regards to, the stress that I've endured, and we'll talk about, epigenetics a little bit later, but that whole gamut of our genetic profile being identical twins would be identical at birth, but our environment can actually change that throughout the process, throughout our years. So really tweaking food for our bio-individual needs. Then the other side of nutritional therapy is our health on a cellular level. And that too can be altered by epigenetics. So that's, for example, blood serum, plasma, urine, stool analysis. That is nutrient therapy. That is the foundation to build everything else upon. So speech and occupational therapy, movement, whatever it might be, that, cognitive therapy. And obviously, I'm talking about children on the spectrum, but I work with mental health and pediatric special needs. That's definitely my passion. I mainly work with women and children. But that's the foundation that we build upon. And when I started to incorporate that for my son, it was just like I was gobsmacked. I had no idea at how effective it would be. And that's why I shout this from the rooftops now.
The two notes that I made for myself when you were talking was that as women, we do need to trust our gut, because we're going to get those negative messages from people telling us, take a chill pill, calm down, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, what kind of parent you are, and your child, and you do need to trust your gut, don't you? Even for yourself.
Absolutely. So many people said to me, oh, it's just behavioral, he'll get over it. Oh, my son was, slow at speaking, all these types of things. But, the primary carer knows their child better than anyone on the planet. You don't need to be a professional to have that real gut instinct of what fits or what sits well with you.
It's true. And that's why I firmly believe that we need to be advocates for our own health, because yes, whilst there's a whole world of professionals out there, ultimately, if we're not advocating for our own health and that of our loved ones, then we're handing over our power to a lot of different people who will tell us a lot of different things that may not be right for us at that moment. Would you agree with that statement?
I couldn't have said it better, seriously, because, and I think we may have had this discussion when I was up in Townsville just recently for our grandson's first birthday. He's so cute, by the way. Have I told you? I just want to eat him. Yeah, so I had well-meaning health professionals say, don't worry about food, Rhonda. Like, there's no real research, there's no real science. It's a lot of time and effort for no real results. It costs a lot of money. And I'm just so grateful that I totally dismissed what they said. Like, if I really don't know where I would be today if I'd listened to those well-meaning health professionals. Like, I'm talking, 6 years of uni, unless, and this is something that I'm really passionate about. When you seek out professionals with that first-hand experience, that is gold. You cannot get that personal experience from any other manner. When you're working with someone that's been there, that's done that will never be shocked by anything you say or do because they've been there. You're onto something. And it is so many people have just dismissed what I was doing. I was like, when we started at AEIU, we were like the first cohort to come through, and there was a lot of teething, and there's teething problems in regards to any kind of developmental centre or even school for that matter. But so many people just poo-pooed what I was doing. We were even I had OTs when he had fecal compaction to the point of fecal gouging because he wouldn't open his bowels. He would not poo for 7 to 10 days. And I was told, oh, but that's normal. It's sensory. He's autistic. He's holding on. It's like, seriously, I'm a typical country girl. I grew up out at Central Queensland. You don't need a health degree to understand that if you don't shit, you die. Sorry for the language, but seriously, I call a spade a spade. And if you do not go to the toilet on a daily basis, there's something seriously wrong. And this well-meaning occupational therapist said, cut a hole in his nappy. Do you know what I mean? Like, people just need to understand the importance of the gut health. And that's why I think you and I resonate so well together, because you get it, you've been there. And your science degree in regards to exercise physiology and all that kind of stuff, you understand the importance of health. But little did we realize until we actually start to look into gut health that it impacts on so many things. So sorry, I get on a tangent and on my soapbox, and yeah.
Experience becomes so important, and that's why people who've had lived experience that have then gone and done the study to support it is also powerful. And we're not just going to talk about our kids today, because let's face it, we're grown-up ladies and stuff happens. But tell me about your experience with adrenal fatigue, which we chatted briefly about when you were here as well.
Yeah, so that's something that I'm also very passionate about, because families will come to me about little Johnny or little Mary, and they're the primary focus, and I get that. But when families come to me and they decide to work with me, and I'm very particular and pedantic on who I work with, because I can't do the work for them. They need to be open and to be coachable. If they're willing to do little bits at a time and understand the science behind it, etc., then I'm happy to work with them. And the reason I'm so passionate about that is because I've burnt out twice. The support that I'm offering was not available in 2008 when my son was diagnosed. It was like I was, reinventing the wheel. I was recreating the wheel and having to, put all these steps and strategies in place, and had to learn it and put it into place. So, and often if we're caring for someone, or, if we have some kind of stressful environment, like even as a child, if you're growing up in some kind of stress, and you may not even have a stressful environment throughout your childhood, you may just have ancestors with, that kind of stress. And that also comes back to epigenetics, because trauma is passed down through 7 to 10 generations on a cellular level. So that alone can increase our risk of burning out, of that adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue, any kind of fatigue, really. Some people cope better with stress than others. That also can come down to a genetic factor. Are we detoxing properly? All of these things in regards to our methylation, our environment, what we're eating, will all impact upon adrenals and fatigue. So in regards to my own personal experience, yes, I had 4 children. I had a child with significant health and developmental needs and regression. And I was needing to have plan A, B, C, and D all the time. It would be nothing for that gorgeous little boy to get so stressed out that he would run across the road. Trying to get into the supermarket to do groceries. It was stressful. And it wasn't because he was naughty. I'm a real firm believer of all behavior is a form of communication. If your child is freaking out, or if a loved one is freaking out, there's underlying reasons as to why these things are happening. Sure, we don't condone poor behavior, but there's a reason. So when you've got all this stress on you and you feel like, like for myself, speaking from experience, I'm a type A personality. If someone says, no, you can't do that, I'll stand there and say, well, you just watch me. I'm going to prove you wrong. I want to make sure I'm doing things the right way as best as possible. But yes, that adrenal fatigue, because I had my blinkers on and really focusing on the young one, had 3 other children. I was caring for my father-in-law as well. My husband worked away, so we could afford all the therapies. We're on acreage at Mount Elliot. So there was a lot, driving half an hour just to get into town. Yeah, I was burning the candle at both ends. And it just got to the point where it was like, wow, I really do need to focus on myself. You need to put that oxygen mask on yourself before you can serve others, before you can save others. So that's a real big factor for me. If parents come to me or individuals come to me about their children or someone, I focus on them, because if they break, the whole family breaks. And we need to make sure that, like you were saying, we can advocate on behalf of our loved ones or for ourselves, but we need to be able to implement all the changes, or the tips and the strategies, be able to put that forward. So yeah, put that oxygen mask on yourself first. You need to look at, what are you eating? What are your stress levels like? Are you recharging? Are you getting tested in regards to your, cellular health, blood, urine, stool analysis, if you can afford it? If you can't, you need to tap into people who can do a full comprehensive health assessment to identify what they think is going on and support you and educate you so you don't burn out.
It's hard, isn't it? Because I had a conversation similar to this with a mother of 3 young children about 2 weeks ago. And, she's got a child with challenges, but I can see that she's burnt out. And after we talked about the child and some things she could do, we then talked about her. And I was, very much, well, how are you doing? What are you doing to look after yourself? And we had a long chat, and she said, oh, can you please come and live with us? And I said, no, I think you should come and live with us. You need a break, and then you need to build up your resilience, because when you try to implement change or new systems or new habits or behaviors, you have to have your own resilience and your own energy reserves built up, because it's, it takes a lot of work, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And even, as a nutritional therapist, I burnt out for a second time as well, even though I thought I was doing everything right. And the big thing is that, yes, you need to surround yourself with a tribe of people. And that's why I'm very, open to be talking and having interviews with, proactive people like yourself, because, you are a mentor to many people, an influencer, and people need to be seeking out like-minded people like yourself. So yeah, absolutely. But the other thing is that building up that resilience is, well, what are some of the ways that we can fast track that? We need to be looking at, well, how can we reduce factors, for example, oxidative stress? How can we support our mitochondria, which is the energy in every single cell, support our gut health, etc.? Are you grounding yourself, going for a walk along the beach, or through the rainforest, national park, botanical gardens, read a book, take an Epsom salt bath, whatever it might be, because on a cellular level, or even rescue remedies. Here, I've got some of these. You can just get this from a health food store, something like that, or some essential oils, play some music, sing, dance around crazy with the kids, whatever it might be. But yeah, we need that downtime for us, because yeah, when we crash, everyone around us crashes.
Yes, it's so true. And so talk to me about therapy laying, because, as a woman with adrenal fatigue, how could we layer some therapies to support our overall health?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess in regards to layering, this is what I would classify as layering. Definitely, we need to be looking at what we're eating. Okay, that would be the foundation for me. Look at what we're eating. Are we eating whole foods, or are we eating pretend foods, dead food? So, and I know that can be often challenging, especially if we've got stress or adrenal fatigue and stuff, because that also comes down to the gut and the microbiome. So when we've got an imbalanced microbiome, the pathogenic, the unfriendly bacteria are sending signals to your brain saying, feed me carbs, feed me sugar. And it is like an addiction. Yeah,
I love
absolute addiction.
pasta. I used to love sandwiches and pasta. I very rarely have sandwiches and pasta anymore. But it's funny, because if I'd have met you 2 years ago when I had adrenal burnout and was, in a lot of serious health issues, I didn't think about therapy laying. I just thought about, okay, I'm going to think about gut health. I'm going to think about exercise. I'm going to think about stress. But actually now when I look back in reflection, all of those little things that I did was layering, 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 layering. I didn't
Absolutely.
have terminology for it at the time, but yes, carry on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, food is definitely one step, and then we also have, in regards to the nutrients, vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, things that can help reduce our excessive amounts of free radicals. So, for people who aren't familiar with free radicals, then I recommend that jump on to the Facebook group, or come back to Chrissy, because Chrissy has a full understanding of the free radicals, how the excessive amounts are like cellular rusting for us, and that creates oxidative stress, oxidative damage, which then also damages the gut as well, creates cellular stress, adrenals. Yeah, it's a real vicious cycle. And then also address your mitochondria. So like I was saying, mitochondria is the energy in every single cell in our body. It helps us to inflate our lungs, our heart is beating, gets you up off the lounge, gets you motivated, helps with your mindset, all these things. So that's definitely the basis that I would be starting with. Get yourself out in a mother's group, surround yourself with people that can help you with your positive mindset, because that negative talk that we're always listening to, that will be impacting us on a cellular level. Significant. Your adrenals will only take for so long when you're constantly in fight or flight mode. So you may not feel it, you may not necessarily feel it, but loved ones around you may actually see it. So you're not coping. Yeah. You might fly off the handle easily. You might be crying, whatever it might be. You might be comfort eating. You might be a recluse. You might be just, constantly just Netflixing, throughout series or whatever it might be. You might just not cope. So all of these things we need to be layering, and to me that's just something that comes naturally, but some people just need to be steered so in the right direction. So whether it's like I said, a magnesium Epsom salt bath, if you've got float tanks up in towns. Well, I'm not sure of your demographics, but we've got float tanks here. I'm on the Sunshine Coast. We've been here just over 4 years now, and I highly recommend those types of things. So that's all types of layering.
There are some in Townsville. So what is nutrigenomics? That's an interesting word to get your tongue around. So
Yeah. So nutrigenomics is something that I started to study back in 2009. It is pretty much like a science of using nutrition, herbs, food compounds to impact upon our genetic profile. So another way of looking at it is that we're biohacking. So we're biohacking on a cellular level, our genetic profile. So, every single day we're being hacked by our environment. Our environment is like, way more toxic than what it was 50 years ago. Wi-Fi, 5G coming through. If you're not concerned about 5G, please do some research. It really freaks me out. There's, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, genetically modified food. All of these things are impacting upon us on a cellular level, and it's hacking us. eating processed foods, McDonald's, KFC, all these foods that are very problematic in our food. Our cells cannot really identify them as real food. So that's us, being hacked every single second of the day. Chemicals, what we're washing our clothes in, what we're putting on our skin, anything that we put on our skin is absorbed within the bloodstream within 26 seconds. So we need to be mindful of that. Where we can biohack, it's like taking the stairs instead of the elevator, going for a gentle walk to de-stress, or using natural foods, food compounds, vitamins, minerals, etc., to get everything back from being hacked to biohacking. So yeah, that's nutrigenomics pretty much on a cellular level, using food and herbs, natural compounds to help us work as nature intended. It's natural anti-aging pretty much.
It's interesting.
It's helping us to work.
Talk with clients about this. I like to use the compound interest effect, because we all understand compound interest relating to our mortgage. But if you look at all the compounding effects of those things you've just described, environmental toxins, food toxins, lifestyle toxins, so on and so forth, they all have a compounding effect on your overall health and well-being, including work stress, personal circumstances. If you can just dial back some of those stresses, then you'll find the compound interest start to reduce over time. But it's little bits of each of those things that you need to work on. You can't just necessarily focus on any one thing.
Absolutely. And I say to many people who come to work with me is that, we can work on food and testing supplements and all those types of things, activation, getting, everything working again. But if you're still in a stressful environment, if you would love to sack your boss, if you would love to be able to, change things, but you're stuck, well, then we need to work on those things as well, because it's, you can't have good health if you're in a stressful environment, or if you're living in a toxic environment. Get rid of your chemicals. What are you cleaning the home with? All these types of things. We need to be really mindful of that.
I'm glad that you're a kindred spirit on that, because I've felt that since I have made tweaks in all single one of those areas, my health has just gone from here to here, basically. So, here to here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is epigenetics? Because it's a fun word and some people know a little bit about it, but what does it mean to you?
Yeah, so epigenetics, I guess, very in layman's terms, is that, like I was talking about before, you and I could be identical twins, and we've lived in the same household, and you've gone off and, gone to uni, got married, had children, yada, yada, and everything's all good. I may have been in some kind of a car accident, or had some kind of stress, lots of medication, or maybe I've been in a stressful relationship, stressful job, that potentially exposed to like chemicals or whatever it might be. For example, for me, I grew up out of Emerald, and it would be nothing for me to get crop dusted alongside my friends where we're on our pushies. Yeah. So that chemical load can impact upon our genetic profile. So epigenetics is the genes that we're born with, we inherit through the generations, and the environment, the other side of the epigenetics, is impacting upon our genetic profile. So we all have about 400 survival genes. And because of our environment, certain survival genes may not be flipped on properly, or they might be overexpressed. Does that make sense?
Really good.
Yeah. And so what we can do is that if we can try to, take control of our environment a little bit better by reducing those stresses, and there's lots of stresses, like I was mentioning, it could be microwaves, or it could be, even exercising. All of these things can be creating changes to our genetic profile, good and bad. So it's all about, where you lived, where you were born, were you a C-section or a natural childbirth, inoculated with the beneficial bacteria that we have in the vaginal canal. All of these things will actually alter your genetic profile. Like, for example, medications, antibiotics, or if we've been on the pill, that works like antibiotics as well. It's damaging our microbiome. If we've had paracetamol or Nurofen. Paracetamol is really detrimental to our internal antioxidant system. So that too can impact upon our genetic profile. Does that make sense?
It's really interesting, and I've noticed a lot for myself that I very rarely need painkillers now, but also I don't want to take them because I recognize that they weren't helpful to my health generally. So whereas I was going to the doctor and asking for a prescription for stronger painkillers because I was in so much pain, I haven't taken painkillers for more than 2 years, and I'm kind of glad about that. But it's like I have recognized that all of those environmental factors as well as my internal state was damaging my health, and I needed to be accountable for it. So I think you explained it.
Absolutely. And I think, don't get me wrong, we certainly, last March, my husband and I were over in America, and I was involved in a snowmobile injury, and I snapped my thumb clean in half, fractured things, and it was like, yeah, bring on the pain relief. It certainly has its time and its place, if you've got a major infection or something, yeah, bring on the antibiotics. However, I think it's really important that if we all come from a state of being open and coachable, having that mindset that our body is an amazing, amazing masterpiece. And if we treat it well, we can heal naturally from a lot of different things. So, unless, eaten by a tiger or hit by a truck, it's like, bring it on. But yeah, it's just being mindful that there's lots of different ways that we can heal naturally without the pharmaceuticals.
It's true. And I think we both have subscribed to the food is medicine mantra.
Absolutely. Yeah. And in regards to all the pain, etc., a lot of people are experiencing, that's inflammatory markers. When we've got, when we're putting, like you were talking about, food is medicine, or it could be, slowest form of poison. When we're starting to feel all of these aches and pains, maybe not sleeping properly, your mood's changed, energy is changed, lots of muscle and joint discomfort, all these types of things, they're all telltale signs that something's not quite right. And usually the underlying factor, even for pediatric special needs, it comes down to inflammatory markers, inflammation. Instead of having a tiny little pilot light and it flares up if there's a bacterial or viral infection, like a flamethrower that's killing off any of the invaders, that's good. But what has to happen is that flamethrower needs to come back down to the pilot light. And when that doesn't happen, that's when we start to see significant health issues coming along.
That's a really useful analogy. So to finish today, what would be 2 nutrition tips to help us get on the road to recovery from kind of long-term stress and burnout?
Yeah, so nutrition, we need to get on top of the gut health. We need to remove what's harming and replenish with what's healing. So ideally, any type of processed foods, sugars, all those types of things, that is not your friend at all. It's no one's friend. Colors, flavors, preservatives, they are not our friends. They are chemical. Our body cannot identify what they are. It's problematic. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we need to get on top of the excessive amounts of oxidative stress that we have. And unfortunately, food is not enough anymore. We cannot eat our way or supplement our way out of the excessive amounts of free radicals. We need to reduce it. We need to get our body working again, get that endogenous internal antioxidant system going again that we're all born with. All mammals have it. I'm not sure if you can see my little fur baby in the background. All mammals have an internal antioxidant system. In our mid-20s, that starts to switch off. It's a natural aging process. But what I see in clinic now is that babies are born with excessive chemical load and excessive amounts of free radicals, to the point where the free radicals of a 30, 40, 50-year-old, our babies have. Chemical load, umbilical cords have over 200 toxins in the umbilical cords of newborn babies. This is not okay. This is why I believe we have an epidemic proportion of childhood illnesses, mental health issues. So we need to reduce the oxidative stress. And then the next factor is mitochondria. we need to get onto our mitochondria so we can replenish and heal our mitochondria so they replicate healthy, functional mitochondria. So our brain's working properly, our heart, all of our organs, our muscle cells, we're waking up feeling refreshed, bright as a button, like, let's take on today. Yeah. And then you fall into bed and you fall asleep straight away and you're sleeping peacefully, restfully. That's what life's about, enjoying life.
Sounds like utopia.
That's what we're here for. Absolutely. Ongoing support and education.
More of that for myself, definitely, since I've done a lot of those things that you talk about. So thanks so much for joining me, because it's really helpful to, have my messages reinforced by another person who's, really focused on the nutritional side of health and well-being. And for me, really to recognize that, unfortunately, as women, we are role models to our children, and we start to change the cycle. And I don't want my young girls to have endocrine disrupting disorders. I don't want them to face fertility issues. I don't want them to be exposed to higher risks of toxins and cancers and so on and so forth. And so I'm really quite passionate about that. So thank you for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome. And I just want to say thank you, Chrissy. If I could give you a hug, I would, because the work that you're doing is just absolutely fantastic. And I'm so passionate about, it's not just about what's happening now. We need to think of our babies, but also our babies' babies. What is their health going to be like? What is our grandchildren's children going to be like? And that's the concern for me when we've got such epidemic proportions in regards to mental health and children's health. We have the knowledge. We can change this. We just need to surround ourselves with people who can educate and support us and steer us in the right direction. So I say bring it on.
Thank you so much. Right, I'm wishing you well, and I will see you again real soon. Thanks, Rhonda.
You're welcome, darling.
Bye.
Bye.